Cicada here, coming in reasonably spicy at 2 a.m. in the morning as per usual to discuss an interesting subject that I've noted and I feel is worth pointing out. It's generally an internet trend that I've spotted. Have you noticed that literally every political YouTuber is Canadian? What the heck is up with that? I really don't get it. I don't consider my videos very political, but why is it that a lot of these really long political style video essays at channels like We're in Hell and stuff is Canadian? What's the trend there? Am I missing something? Why are all the political analysts here on the internet from Canada? What a weirdly specific place for all the people talking about politics to be from. It's not all to say that I dislike every Canadian YouTuber. There are a lot whose research I think is pretty well done. They're just pretty informative. The videos are pretty well constructed. Darcy Buckley, for instance, has been some of my favorite videos for well over a decade at this point. But I'm talking more so about these long, in-depth, heavily researched political type videos. I find particularly strange is that Americans seem to take these videos seriously as competent advice on how America can run its country when it's coming from people who don't live in America and don't deal with the struggles of the average American under an American system. I just find that somewhat bizarre. The worst example of this trend, hands down, is J-Reg. This guy is pretentious as fuck, and his videos are utter crap. He is literally so full of himself that I wonder why he hasn't imploded into a fucking black hole yet. And I made a parody of him back in the day called J. Greg's, where I basically made the whole joke just this Canadian pretends like he understands the political compass or something when he lives in a country that doesn't have nearly the political influence on an international stage that America does. So I'm where's your personal expertise in this? You don't even vote for the leader of your country. The leader of your country is the current reigning British monarch because Canada is a British puppet state. And this is not to say that all British people or all people living in British puppet states like Canada and Australia are politically ignorant, but on average, does the average British or Canadian citizen know less about democracy than the average American, considering that Americans live under a democracy and British and Canadian people live under a monarchy? Yeah, on average, I would trust the average British guy less to give me a well-informed, nuanced take on how politics works than I would the average American. It's not at all to say that there aren't very well-educated political analysts and theorists in Britain, at Oxford or whatever, and a lot of them are probably way smarter than the average American when it comes to what a democracy is or whatever, but just in terms of people who I trust on average, ordinary people to give me advice about democracy and how to protect democracy, I would take advice from people who live in democracies like Mexico or France before I would take it from the Canadian. I don't know, call me nutty, but I just don't like getting my political theory about how to protect democracy from someone who doesn't live in a democracy. It doesn't really make any sense to me. And I find it somewhat disturbing how Americans don't even really understand the fundamental differences between a democracy and a monarchy. If there was an Irish Republican Army member who started up a YouTube and started making big long video essays about, Irish stuff and how the Irish beat back the British and conquered all of their island except Northern Ireland, I would be like, wow, that's based as fuck. That guy knows what the fuck he's talking about in terms of how to put in effect a sustainable democracy that I respect and have a great deal of admiration for. But more often than not, it's probably a Northern Irish guy who makes videos on YouTube. I just think it's a real bummer and a letdown. And there is kind of the more disturbing possibility that the reason there aren't so many political video essayist YouTubers here on the internet, and most of them are these kind of pretentious, uppity Canadians who talk down to America like, oh, you need to do better, oh, we're so much better than you, oh, we have free healthcare up here. That the reason is because all the Americans who are poor and struggling to get free healthcare and, just live like a hell life, don't have time for like video production and the ability to make these long, extravagant videos about, oh, here's the 7 ways that Joe Biden is wrong or that Donald Trump is wrong or whatever. Americans don't really have time for that on average. So maybe that's why all the video production has moved up to Canada. I don't really know if I'd give too much credit to that theory, because I do think there is some potential left in the American politics commentary market. It's just so odd, this trend where Canadians will talk more about Joe Biden in a video than they will about Justin Trudeau, even though it's like, Joe Biden isn't your president. Justin Trudeau is your prime minister or whatever. Aren't you talking about Justin Trudeau a lot more? Like, that's your country. I do feel bad for Canadians. They clearly wish they were Americans so that, like, their politicians would be taken seriously as active participants on the world stage instead of freaking tiddlywinks participants. But, no one really takes Justin Trudeau seriously much, so I can see why the Canadians kind of use, oh, Joe Biden, oh, here's Joe Biden. It's good clickbait. It keeps the outrage going. At the same time, I imagine there's a lot of patriotic Canadians who actually do like their country and wish that there was more up-to-date and smart commentary on Justin Trudeau and Rob What's-His-Face and whatever the Conservative and Green parties are doing and whatever, and oh, how's the Parliament going, or however the heck the Canadian puppet state government operates. I don't know. I'm not British, so I have no idea how any of that stuff works. I just find it kind of strange whenever I'm watching a video and color is spelled colour instead of color, or checks is spelled CHEQUE, or labeled has 2 L's in it, and I'm just like, oh, it's a Canadian video. Yeah, this is where I want to get my information on the American political system from, non-Americans. Like, seriously, I'd rather take my political advice from El Chapo, because at least he grew up in a democracy that is similar to America's. That is no joke. I would rather get political advice on how to run a country successfully from El Chapo than I ever would from J-Reg. Just because J-Reg is so smarmy and full of himself and all his videos are toxic bullshit. I think with Drake being outed this year, Americans are kind of starting to catch on to Canadian cultural appropriation and how it's kind of a cringeworthy trend, and it's not really worth like celebrating or cheering on or anything. And I kind of like that at least America seems to have some self-respect left. At the end of the day, I don't know. I would just trust a Canadian way more if they talked about Justin Trudeau more and Joe Biden a lot less, and like actually seem to appreciate the country they're in instead of just like glomming onto American stuff and being like, oh, I understand the American political system even though I've never participated in an American election in my freaking life. I only vote up here from Vancouver. I really don't know, but as definitely like the only prominent video creator in Denver, I just find it strange that so many American cities are just like depleted of video content, and it's all just coming from Canada. That's a really weird trend. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's part of the same trend that props up a bunch of frauds and hacks like Alan Moore or Terry Pratchett or whoever to the top of the reading list. I think that's a very separate trend. It's more like British-centric, but at the same time, it is just weird that there's so many Canadians talking about American politics. I don't get it. And I didn't say I'm that educated about American politics, but do I know more about it than the average Canadian? Yeah, because I vote every November, so like, no shit. Anyway, I don't know, just an interesting phenomena I've noticed. What do you think? Is it good, bad? Heck, maybe it's somehow beneficial. Let me know down in the comments. Cilantro.